Hey everyone, it's Dinah, and we are back with more of Moon Knight, this time on to episode number 5 of season 1. Last time we had Layla and Steven, mostly Steven now being back in control of the body, mostly Steven and Layla, actually then them discovering the tomb, and actually I think not specifically the tomb of Ami. I think in the end it turned out to be the tomb of Alexander the Great, who was actually a former avatar of Amit and everything, so that was cool, and we had a kind of fun little kind of horror aspect to it too, with the whole kind of mummified kind of corpse thing coming to life, and it killed a few of Harrow's kind of henchmen, and then actually found Layla and Steven, and then they kind of killed two. They killed two, just one each between them. So they killed two, so that was cool. So we had like a fun little kind of horror, like the mummy style kind of horror element there. So that was really fun to watch. Then I think Harrow and Layla had like a bit of a moment where he revealed like a bit more of the history that she wasn't aware of about her father to her, wherein he was actually a part of the very same team of archaeologists that Stephen and his company, that Mark and his company of mercenaries was actually guilty of executing back in the day and everything. And Mark didn't do the execution himself. Like his partner got greedy and then wanted more and ended up killing the archaeologists in the end. And then Abdullah El Fuli, Layla's father, like actually turned out to be a member of that team and everything. And then that kind of chain of events actually led to Mark being saved by Khonshu and then meeting Layla and everything. So that was the whole thing. But in the end, they found the tomb, and then I think because Khonshu's no longer in him, he no longer has the powers of Moon Knight. He can no longer summon the robes or even summon the healing armors. I think he got shot by Mark came back, and he got shot by Harrow twice, and then he supposedly died. He fell into the waters and everything, and then all of a sudden, we as the audience were transferred into his kind of mental limbo, where all the faces we've seen, all the people we've seen showed up, and all the kind of references to different kind of things within Stephen and Mark's lives have kind of showed up. It's like a mental institute kind of style limbo in his own head that at least the memories we as an audience are familiar with all showed up and everything, and then that led to Mark and Steven in their own kind of individual kind of little bodies meeting up and reuniting for the first time, and we were even teased with Jake Lockley being trapped in in his own sarcophagus, and then we had Steven managing to be rescued by Mark in his sarcophagus, and then they walked past another room where we were teased with Jake, and then he sounded very angry. He sounded very angry at being trapped and everything. So who knows? Who knows if we might get a Jake Lockley review in this episode? So that would be cool. And then I think we met Towerette. We at the very end, the very final shot was Mark and Steven kind of screaming after being discovered by Towerette and everything. And she sounded sweet. She sounded pretty nice and didn't really kind of seem that harmful. So yeah, hopefully then they can actually have like a more peaceful and civil discussion with her and everything. So they met Towerette, and I think it's good to know that I think she or at least like her manifestation is within Mark's mind still. So how much is good, so maybe she might be the key to helping them find their way back to Khonshu again. I mean, he's still kind of in prison in the real world, so how they find him is going to be another question. But hopefully, she has some answers, and it'll be good. I think if this episode really does give us a journey through Mark's mind and his history and his timeline, and like the kind of like tools, like kind of the creation of Stephen and Jake as alters, then that would make for a really cool kind of introspective kind of episode. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing what this episode has in store. So that'll be fun. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can really remember. I think some history on Layla's father, and then I think even Layla and Steven actually had a few moments of their own too, and they even kissed, and then that kind of definitely pissed off Mark in a very very kind of noticeable kind of way and everything. He punched himself in the face like to try and hurt Steven and everything. So that was that. So yeah, they had a moment. I think the show is kind of building towards like a will they won't they type thing between Steven and Mark and Layla. So who knows where it's going to end up? Who knows exactly where it's going to end up and everything? But I am very curious. Like regardless of where that ends up, I am very curious to actually see how and where they kind of go with the kind of relationship between Steven and Mark as alters and everything, because I think both of them want kind of individual control over the body and everything, and I think Steven just wants to go back to his normal life and try and live without insomnia and all these different kind of things going on, and then Mark wants to clear all this stuff with Khonshu and actually kind of, you know, clear the Moon Knight name and all that kind of stuff. And who knows what Jake wants? Once we get Jake in the show, okay, well, once we finally get Jake in the show, who knows what he's gonna want? If he wants to fight, if he wants to live, if he wants to do something else, then I guess only time will tell. So yeah, but I think this is also the penultimate episode too. So I think I'm kind of I think so far I think the story has kind of been continuing at like a neat enough kind of pace that I can kind of feel like they're maybe coming towards an ending, because I think the end game from the beginning pretty much has seemed to be stopping Harrow from unleashing armies, for stopping Harrow from resurrecting and unleashing armies, and potentially even becoming her kind of actual fully fledged avatar and everything. So assuming that is still the end game, then maybe they'll still leave some kind of closed, maybe they'll still leave some kind of loose ends to actually tie up in like a movie or like a second season. Maybe if they maybe because I think even for like Loki, like a season 2 wasn't actually revealed until the very end of the first season. Like even then, like that was how pretty much everyone found out. So I think maybe they could do the same thing for this too. Maybe like the post credits we could see them confirming a Moon Knight season 2 or like a movie or something coming in. So who knows? But I think you know, for multiple reasons, I think this really isn't a character or a story they're just gonna kind of tidy away once they're done with him. I think it's a character with like a big future and a big history, a big future and like a more to see kind of type of history within the MCU and everything, and like definitely kind of more to see like on the horizon, like of him interacting with other characters and other entities, and actually him kind of expanding his future within the MCU and everything. So who knows where they can go? They have just like a whole kind of backlog of comics on their own to rely on, and a lot of source material. So yeah, I guess only time will tell. But yeah, that is definitely pretty much it from the last episode and any other kind of pre-spec. So yeah, Moon Knight season 1, episode 5. Let's go.
I mean,
Oh
gosh. A lot of money in this place. Really,
does he have like a button on his chair?
Like $1 million. Never felt so good.
Oh god.
Thank you, Doctor. I don't want to.
Oh gosh, this will really bake your noodle. But I think you were just taking a little time out.
And I recognise the voice too. I can't quite place it, but I definitely recognise it.
To the realm of the Duat.
Duat.
The Duat.
Egyptian underworld.
Oh, the underworld.
Taweret.
Taweret.
Women and children. She's guiding us through our journey to the afterlife. Wow. Okay.
Oh, he's chuffed. He's chuffed.
Right.
You'd be surprised how many intersectional planes of untethered consciousness exist.
So even the consciousness has a multiverse,
Plane.
like the ancestral plane. Oh, it's
Anyway, I do
beautiful.
actually
Yeah,
have
beautiful.
cards for all this.
Oh, she's so sweet. She's so sweet. Whoa! What's this? They're on a ship. They're on a boat. On sand. That's a ship on sand.
We're sailing to Arut. To the Field of Reeds, right, Taweret?
Field of Reeds. Oh yeah, he mentioned that.
If your heart's balanced in life, then you will spend eternity in paradise.
Scales.
Field of
What's she? Whoa. Oh, their hearts. Yeah, their hearts. Yeah. Oh, damn. Yeah.
little old me worrying I'd blow your chest wide open.
You've done this before, haven't you? To many other people? What if one heart is equal but one heart isn't? How would it do?
I don't know.
Because even Arthur's Cain couldn't judge them accurately.
Without balanced scales, the Duat will eventually claim your soul.
No, but it can't come to decision then. Isn't that the whole point of being unbalanced? Like, it's not...
Oi, what's this?
Is that
What do we do
Jake?
here? We're gonna like revisit every single memory I've ever had.
I see a cab and a dude. Is that Jake or is that...
Do you remember this? It's the street. You know, how many streets have you walked down your whole life?
Oh no, Mark does remember it. I think Mark is definitely the one holding back on a lot of trauma. Like everyone he's killed as a mercenary, maybe? Oh shit. Oh, the scales are here too.
Surely not all of them?
He was a mercenary, Steve.
All of them?
Jesus.
They were criminals, murderers.
Oh, as
predators, the
Moon
worst
Knight
of the
then,
worst.
maybe.
Khonshu wanted them punished.
Oh, he killed them all as Moon Knight. Whoa, little boy. Oh, that's Mark, right?
Why is there a child in a
No,
room
that's
filled with
Mark.
people
I'm willing to
who-
bet that's young Mark.
What's your
It's
name?
got to be
Oh,
Mark, yeah.
hold on there. Wait a moment.
Because again, I think in the comics that was when his as a child, like DID. That's when that actually happens. Oh shit, Steven, really? Really, Steven? You're gonna explore Mark's trauma all on your own? He had a brother! Oh shit, he had a little brother.
Keep an eye on your brother.
Did I read about that on Wiki? Did I read about that on the comic history? In a wild crocodile. Fuck off, fuck's sake. Oh, latest gators. Oh, for fuck's sake. Latest gators in a wild crocodile. God damn it. Randall. Yeah, I remember Randall. Randall. Yeah. Randall. I read about that name.
Mom said not to when it's raining.
Oh, shit. Have they changed what his trauma is in this then? Because I think it used to be like him watching like a guy, like a former Nazi, killing people. Yeah. Have they changed what his trauma is in this?
Come on, lads! We have to leave now! Can you hear me?
Oh gosh.
Follow my voice!
Oh no.
Boys! I hear you! I hear you, Mom!
Oh, it's a funeral. A funeral for Randall.
What are you doing here?
Did they blame him?
Hmm?
They blamed Mark.
Come on, buddy.
Oh, she
We're
blamed
supposed
Mark.
to keep him safe.
Stephen, let's go.
Oh god.
Your fault. This is all your fault.
She's not coming.
She blamed him for the rest of his childhood?
Your mother's not feeling well, Mark.
Really? So losing his brother and then being blamed for it as well?
I should have known you would do something like this.
Mom, what are you doing?
Oh god. Oh no.
What happened in that room, Mark? All right. All right.
Oh
Why are you
no.
remembering her like that? It's not what she was like. Turns out going AWOL in a fugue state gets you discharged from the military. Didn't have a ton of options after that, so I went work for hire for my old CO, Bushman.
Oh, Bushman, yeah.
An
Yeah.
Egyptian tomb. Called for no witnesses, and I couldn't live with that. Is that Dr. Al-Fouli?
That's Abdallah. Abdallah Al-Fouli.
What happened to you?
He was saved by Khonshu, wasn't he? Yeah, he was saved by Khonshu. Placed under Khonshu's statue and saved by him, yeah. Nice, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, that looks exactly what I've seen from the panels, yeah. Well, I think in this one he managed to get himself to safety, apparently. Yeah, I think in the comics he was saved by 2 people.
Your mind, I feel it. Fractured, broken, most fascinating.
So he came in because it was already so
Are a
fractured.
worthy candidate. Do you swear to protect the travelers of the light and bring my vengeance to those who would do them harm?
Oh, the first transformation.
My fist of vengeance.
The first transformation.
Moon Knight.
Oh, damn. Oh.
Unbalanced souls are being judged and condemned to the sands before their time. Oh, this
Before
is
their
bad.
time? People are
This is evil.
dying before their time? Oh, yeah, because he's killing people before they can commit evil.
We don't have to go back through it all.
How bad is the bedroom?
Let's just talk.
Did his mother kill herself? Did his mother commit suicide because of everything? Did she like do it?
All your fault. No, you can't. I won't do it. I won't do it. You can't make me. You can't make me. I won't do it. Stop it. Stop.
Oh. Oh god, even as a child, he did it.
Look at the state of this place. But it's
Oh god. Oh god. He literally created Stephen as a child. He turned into Stephen as a child.
Stephen Grant has no fear.
Stephen Grant has no fear. He's not afraid of anything. Oh.
You made me up.
Oh.
Open the door right now.
Oh god.
I want to see what she did. I want to see what she did.
Disgusting.
You're not meant to see that. You're not meant to see that. That's the whole point of you.
He's not meant to be afraid. He's not meant to see any of the bad stuff. Oh.
The point of me, what, to be your stress ball? All this time I thought I was the original. But I'm just something that you made up. You've got to live. What, you want to remember the truth? That you had a mother that beat you? That hated you? That made your life a living hell? Thinking that she loved you, that she was kind, that she's still alive.
Oh.
She's in I speak to her every day. What are you talking about? Let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out! Let me out, let me out! Oh, God, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I'm dreadfully sorry. You gave me a real start there. Gave you a bit of a wash, didn't I? Ned Flanders.
Oh, God, that, oh.
What's the way up to now?
After your mother passed.
Oi, don't say that. That's not true.
Ugh.
That's not true.
Oh, I'm so. I must.
Are you having a laugh as well? Because I don't want to hear it.
Steve.
No, she screams a call.
I
She
know,
won't
just
answer.
go.
She's afraid of telesales
sure she
people.
won't.
So
Trying to say on speaker.
I'm sure of it. Just give me
don't do that.
the number.
Don't bother her, please.
Oh, no.
Hello, Mrs. Grant. Yes,
Oh,
this is
no,
Dr.
no.
Grant.
Oh, he's dead. Mum is dead.
Oh, God. Should have packed tissues for this. Should have packed tissues for this episode. Oh, that's... And he transforms back into Stephen. Gosh.
What?
Oh, he transforms back into Stephen. Oh, God.
All the things I'd done. Mark. All those horrible things that she said to you. She was wrong. I shouldn't have brought him in that cave. I shouldn't have brought him in the cave. Hey. You were just a child. It wasn't your fault.
Your scales never balanced.
God,
Our journey's come to an end.
they never balanced, really? Even after coming this far, discovering this much about each other, they never balanced.
Hi.
Oh, hide. Oh, God, is Mark gonna fight them?
New York.
Oh, people he's killed. People he's killed, yeah.
What's that? What's that?
Oh, God. No, okay, Stephen, can you do something? Can Stephen do something? Oh, steer him. Yeah, steer them back onto the boat. Yeah, tilt the boat.
You've got this. But if I'm you, it means I've got this too.
Yeah, come on, Stephen, you got this. Oh, is he gonna... Oh, yeah, but he's gonna face them too. Oh, get the bat. One wallop to the face, that's it.
I prefer cricket.
Cricket. Oh, Jesus, oh. Oh. Oh no, oh no. Oh, Stephen! Stephen! No, Cole, you gotta go back for Stephen. You can't let Stephen get taken. Stephen, no, don't take Stephen. Don't take Stephen away, come on. No! Stephen! Oh, no.
Stop the boat! Stop the boat!
Oh, the scales are balanced.
Scales are balanced.
So when Stephen dies, the fucking scales balance. And he gets the field of reeds. Stephen gets frozen in the duat and he gets the field of reeds. He gets paradise and Stephen gets the fucking duat. That can't be the Oh my god, that's the fucking ending. That's the ending, really? Wow. Wow, yeah, I really should have packed some fucking tissues. I mean, on the one hand, I am kind of glad I went into this not knowing how, like, heartbreaking it would be. Because then otherwise, I think I actually would have then expected that going in, and then I probably wouldn't have been able to process it in the same way that I did. Like this just hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't see this coming at all, or at least like not as badly as it did, because I think the first kind of 10-15 minutes showed, okay, this is going to be an episode exploring Mark's history and what happened there and how the DID manifested and how that created Steve and everything. So I think that much is clear, going in that much is clear. But then I don't expect it to actually kind of go in as in depth as it did and to actually show off some stuff. I mean, there was still some subtlety here and there where I was actually like a bit more kind of needed, or maybe a bit more preferred, maybe. Like in cases where otherwise it would have been a bit too graphic and maybe even a bit too traumatic for viewers who have gone through near enough the same thing in their own childhoods too. So I think that much kind of was clear. But I think wow, I that took me away. That actually broke me. Yeah, just wow. Yeah, no, I think I did not expect them to go as deeply as they did, and the fact that they did kind of does speak volumes. I mean, it's clear. I think again, it's like I think they changed the trauma. I think they did kind of actually twist the trauma to like quite a bit too, because I think from what I've read in the comics, it was actually like his trauma as a child is directly linked to having explicitly seen an anti-Semitic hate crime take place within, like I think within his own family, or at least like towards his own family or something like that. I think it was actually seeing like an anti-Semitic hate crime take place, and that's what scarred him, and that's what actually changed him, and that like from that point on, that's when the DID started manifesting. So I think that was what the original trauma was, and I think. I'm not Jewish, so it's not in any way my place to dictate or say whether or not this was better, or whether or not like it was a good thing that they changed, or like whatever. Like it's like you should listen to Jewish people when they express any kind of complaints or critiques against changing that and stuff. So I'm not gonna address that point specifically, but I think the fact that they didn't really, like, in my eyes, I think they changed what the trauma was, but I think for me they didn't necessarily kind of like tone it down or water it down, because I think what they showed was still the fact that he still went through something that was horrifying, that no child should ever have to go through, and that trauma came from the hands of his own mother too. Like with that the trauma in this case definitely still happened within his family, and it still kind of changed him as a person, as who he was, and what he was and everything. So the trauma there like still definitely mattered, and it still counted, and it wasn't like sidelining the fact that something happened to him. It's like, oh, something happened to him, but I think the way they went with this just wasn't exactly what it went in the comics. And I think arguably, again, it's like I think the trauma that happened in the comics is actually arguably like a lot more closely linked to who he is as a person, like him being like a Jewish man too. I think it definitely kind of like, I think from what I've heard, and even like from the bits and pieces I've read from the kind of MCU comics kind of wiki page too, I think it definitely did affect like the character's kind of linkage and his approach to Judaism and his approach to religion as a whole, like as he goes down in his life, like as Mark Spector, as as all the other alters and things. I mean, I'm not sure if the other alters are Jewish too, or if he even created the other alters to actually escape that too. But I think just in general, like his link to Judaism, his link to religion as a whole, it is very kind of is very like not tainted, but it's very fractured. His link to religion and to Judaism specifically is very fractured, even in the comics, because of what happens and because of everything that goes on and things. So I think even in this one too, I think they showed off like near enough the exact same thing too. The fact that he went through everything that he did, and like actually kind of having to face that kind of abuse at the hands of family too, like it coming from like an actual familial hand, that he was raised thinking and knowing that he's supposed to trust this person, he's supposed to know this person, he's supposed to love this person and believe that he is also loved by them. But then in the end, they did nothing but torment him from that one event onwards, like from that traumatic event onwards. Like he himself faced a lot of his own kind of self-inflicted guilt over having lost his brother and actually blaming him, but then also actually having the kind of double-edged sword of actually then being blamed directly and explicitly by his mother too, to the point of actual physical abuse as well, like that. Yeah, and I think that like that, but then also that kind of happening over time too, that kind of happening for years on end too, like until like he was like in his late teens, like at which point he left home too. He left home, I think well like probably like in his late teens, maybe hitting his 20s or something, and he never came back until after his mother died, and he never even went in the house either. He never went in the house. He just never he never found the courage to actually he never found the courage like the kind of motivation, the courage to actually approach that history, like his history again after that happened. I think it's also probably safe to think too that after what happened, he also just had like a very strained, very distant relation to his family in general. Like he trusted that his father would be there to actually still like look after his mother and to actually to try and still maintain control of the situation, and actually try and be there when he couldn't, when he just couldn't handle it anymore. But then, clearly that wasn't the case, and he just still couldn't go back inside. But yeah, I mean, I think from the moment they showed the childhood flashbacks, from the moment they actually showed Stephen and Mark going through the halls and finding all the different rooms and everything, like that concept too, like each different room has like a different memory involved in it, and I think it's also, I think, really interesting. I think not only is the little boy the most invasive part too, because I think there's absolutely no way that the little boy and that room full of dead people I was about to say Oscar Isaac. Hey, little tidbit, Oscar Isaac, just fuck me, he did a phenomenal job with this episode. This one episode just absolute, like, he blew it out of the water, like playing Stephen, playing Mark, and like not only playing Mark, but actually playing like a Mark that has to revisit everything that turned him into what he is today, everything that actually made him the way he is, and him alone having to revisit that. I think like for the most part, he kept on trying to stop Stephen as Stephen went through the house too. Like the higher Stephen got, he kept on trying to drag him out of everything. I think the one thing he really did not want to have Stephen see was the bedroom, because the bedroom is where it all began. That room, I think maybe even that day might have been where it all began too. That was when he manifested Stephen Grant as his alter, even as a child. And I think again, the idea that's when he childhood trauma is what creates it. I think maybe even then through childhood is when it actually kind of manifests and it becomes a thing, and that's when the alters get created and everything. So Oscar Isaac, he did a phenomenal job with this. He did like an absolutely phenomenal job, and yeah, I can only imagine how he as an actor, but then also as a person, like how he felt approaching the script like this, and actually approaching all the things that this tackles and all the kind of topics and themes it handles, and how much pressure he felt to actually try and make this like what it was in the end. But yeah, just hats off to him, hats off to everyone involved who actually made this what it is. Again, perhaps not without its issues, perhaps not without the kind of obvious issues layering here and there, but I think for the most part, I think it's still kind of like admirable, for lack of a better term, maybe admirable that they still didn't try and water down what happened, and actually kind of still gave him maybe something like that still kind of stood like as as traumatic, and actually like still made it something that was actually understandable as a really kind of heartbreaking and really kind of like fracturing point of trauma and everything. But yeah, I think in the comics he did have I think he did have it was a brother, because I think I vaguely remember the name belonged to someone else. I think wasn't Randall his partner? Wasn't that his partner? Because I think he like his partner, even in the comics, his partner is the more prominent kind of partner within his team that's mentioned. I think Randall. I can't remember if it was. I think it might have been his brother. Yeah, I think it might be, because I think I read the page like once. I think I kind of had time to kind of look up the history of Moon Knight to actually kind of see into it. So I kind of I didn't skip it, but I kind of read it once. So probably another once over before this probably could have helped. But I think I do vaguely remember actually seeing like Randall appearing in the kind of early life and childhood sections. I think Randall may very well has been his brother. I think maybe then like if they did that would have been even worse. Like if they actually kind of did change that Randall actually wasn't in his childhood. But so I think Randall maybe being here in his childhood too, as just as in the comics too, I think might be like the one kind of other kind of important detail they actually can maintain, they can show through and everything. But then I think that also kind of is the change of the trauma too. So then maybe like if Randall is in his childhood both in the comics and in this, then that is also then the thing that they changed. So then I think in the comics, I think Randall might have actually grown up to be a mercenary with him. I'm not sure. I really have to go back and look up that page again. And then of course, obviously, the more obvious route to go down would be to buy to actually get the comics and have a look through those and see what went down in a more official state. So That would be that. But yeah, I think the one name he did mention was Bushman too. I think Bushman was his old like SO or CO or something like his kind of mercenary kind of old kind of officer, like a commander or whatever. So I think he mentioned having been discharged from the army for going AWOL in a fugue state. So I think that was when I think that might have been I think that was actually linked to his DID. So I think that one I think he didn't really transform into any. I think. Well, I mean, if he went AWOL in a fugue state, if he actually like if that means that he actually kind of went like if he actually blacked out, went really violent, and then blacked back in again, that maybe could that have been Jake Lockley? I mean, I don't really want to like throw names out, or actually could try and like be quick to push labels onto different kind of things. But then if he went AWOL in a fugue state, I think for me the implication there is like he blacked out, went really violent, and actually went dangerously and worryingly violent, and then actually blacked back in again, and then but then because of that. Maybe then the army kind of saw him as like a liability, or maybe they saw him as like a risk or something, so then maybe they actually discharged him because of that. But then, so then maybe that could have been, if Jake Lockley is meant to be the more kind of the ultimately more kind of violent kind of alter out of all three, then maybe that could have been the start of Jake Lockley. But then he wasn't really Jake Lockley back then. He literally just kind of blacked out, became someone much more dangerous and much more violent, and then actually did that thing. So I think maybe that could have been what happened here too. So then after that he but then like he'd been in the army for long enough to still have those experiences, and then that kind of spent kind of like life spent garnering those experiences, and then because that he was still eligible to become a mercenary, and he went on to work for his old CO, so that still kind of happened. So I think as soon as I mentioned caves, I was like, okay, this cannot go well, because I think like caves are just notoriously kind of hazardous kind of place. I mean, they can be beautiful and positive and like have great views and everything, but then they're also like notoriously dangerous because of how like you can't really maintain a cave. Caves are products of nature. Caves will crash in on themselves. They will have all sorts of weak spots and crevices and places that are just kind of death traps as a whole. But then you can't really maintain like a cave as a human, because then it's meant to be maintained by Mother Nature and by the earth and everything. So if something happens, if something falls, then it falls, and that's the end. So yeah, but it being a cave, I think I figured, okay, like this must be like either some kind of mass injury that changes Randall forever, or maybe the kid actually ends up dying. So yeah, lo and behold, they didn't even show. I think that might have been I think maybe like even in that element too, I think that might have been the more heartbreaking point too. The fact that they actually didn't even show, like they didn't show if he drowned, if he actually fell and just kind of died from impact, or like what kind of death it was. Like just the fact that he died. I think maybe even then, I think maybe even then, I think that could have been intentional too. I think them not showing could have been intentional. Maybe out of all the things that he tried to forget, maybe like seeing his brother die could have been one of them. Maybe seeing it like that, because then young Mark was still there. I think the Stephen that we saw was actually like just really far back and everything. He was actually trying to reach for them and trying to lure them away and everything. But then in reality, like in that event, obviously Mark would have been in. He would have seen how his brother died. But then even then, like knowing that's what changes everything, like knowing at that point that's the moment that changes everything. I think maybe I wouldn't really kind of call it implausible to say that like out of everything he tried so hard to forget, or so hard to move on from, maybe that like actively seeing his brother die would have been the one thing he actually did manage to forget. But then everything else kind of still happened, and everything else still changed him and everything. So I think that could have been like a very intentional thing too. Like we can't see it because Mark himself has managed to actually block it out. But then not the fact that it happened, but still the fact that he actually saw it happen. And also maybe he also won't let himself revisit it, because then that also among other memories, like his mother abusing him too. Maybe that one's also like too kind of hard to see, too hard to look past, and especially seeing it as a kid too, that can just be all sorts of just fatal to see. So yeah. That's when it happens too. I think you'd expect and you'd think that facing a loss like that would bring a family together, that everyone would, I mean, you'd expect as much, but I think, you'd expect as much, but I think the saddest, I think honestly one of the saddest things about this entire episode and the story and the topic it deals with is that this kind of thing, and I think one of the things that kind of got to me too, like as I was kind of thinking more and more about it as I was watching the episode too, is like, this kind of thing, almost exactly this kind of thing too, happens in real life to so many different people. I think people face all sorts of people with the idea they have faced all sorts of tragedies and traumas and different abuses and like throughout their whole life, that they go through almost exactly the same thing that Stephen did, and they kind of create these different kind of ways to live in order to deal with that, or maybe even to avoid dealing with that too. So I think thinking about like the combination of thinking about how Mark was dealing with it by creating Steven, but then also actually thinking about how this affects so many people in real life. I think that's actually what got to me and actually broke me down in the end too, and actually like thinking about how real this is, how horrifying this is, and then like I think seeing it, I think obviously too, like seeing it in like seeing it in a TV show, but also seeing it like in like an actual Disney or Marvel kind of thing. It can be changed, it can be toned down in so many ways. It can be so much worse in real life in ways that people are kind of too afraid to look at, or even actually that people just go like kind of can't see because like it's not like awareness about it isn't raised as much, because I think mental health rep in TV shows and like mental health in media as a whole is just so kind of like scarce is one word for it, but then it's also like so toned down in other ways too, because I think part of it could be that like some of it like is actually too explicit to show, and it actually could be triggering for so many different views, and I think it probably wouldn't like really have the same effect if you put it in a TV show like that too. So I think that they kind of have to change it in order to kind of represent it, but I think some people do still try and showcase it in like as authentic of a light as possible, and other people kind of dramatize it to be like, oh yeah, so this is what it's like, so this is as close as we can get to how kind of hard to deal with and hard to live with it is in real life and all that kind of stuff. So seeing it here, I think seeing I think this like these kind of shows dealing with mental health and trauma, I think like especially like how we saw it happening in WandaVision too. I think this episode is like it essentially was like had the same kind of vibe and had like a similar enough kind of journey to it that Wanda had with Agatha in WandaVision. I think Wanda didn't just have that kind of thing with herself. But I think again, like I think the difference with Wanda was, I think she never did what Mark did, but I think she held it all inside. She's held it all inside for years. She's lost everything and so much over the years that she's held it all inside. And then what we saw in that kind of in that penultimate episode was literally her unleashing it all for the first time. And then what does she do? She creates another reality. I think calling that her version of the idea, I think that would probably be inaccurate as all hell, and it probably wouldn't be fair to do that, because then that would just kind of be actually kind of changing the definition, actually kind of like adapting it to fit like a completely different kind of criteria. That would be just so weird. But I think for her, I think that would be kind of her version of actually literally her creating, because I think she was still Wanda. She was still Wanda. Like she was just like a happier version of herself, because she actually had what she finally wanted, and she she gave that to herself, and she used her powers to try and do that and everything. But I think with her, she did she could kind of like create like a whole other reality that actually suited her, and actually kind of like for once she was literally trying to give herself like a happier life and trying to give herself the life that she believed and she kind of actually felt that she wanted and everything. And then I think difference with her, I think she was just she's just been vilified as fuck for it. I think in and out of the actual kind of the Marvel story, like even in universe by people around her, and even outside of the universe by people watching, by others who just kind of love to critique her at every turn and everything. She's just been vilified beyond like all hell for it, actually kind of like told that she doesn't deserve happiness, and then what she did was obviously kind of wrong and had levels of wrongdoing to it. But then I think it's people who kind of focus on that as opposed to why she did it, and why she did it, like how she was led to that point, and why she did all that kind of stuff. And with Scarlet Witch, the way they've changed her has rightfully angered so many people too. And I think even in WandaVision, I think in WandaVision, I think they did like a very similar thing where they changed what her trauma was. Well, I don't know if she's actually kind of gone through like similar stuff in the comics. I don't know if she's actually, because again in the comics, like her father, I don't know who her mother is, but I think her father is literally Eric Lenchard, like it's literally Magneto. So I think with this one they changed it so that I think with this one they just changed it so that her parents died in that kind of bombing in the middle of the kind of war that Sokovia kind of was going through and everything. So they changed that, but I think and then they kind of added on to that with the kind of loss of Pietro and the loss of like everything else that she's actually suffered through life and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think in the comics itself, I don't know about like any other kind of deeply kind of traumatic kind of like tragedies she's faced, and maybe then like again because she's Jewish, maybe because she's Jewish and Romani, maybe the racism and the anti-Semitism, and maybe even like because she's a mutant too, maybe like the mutant thing being like a whole kind of civil rights kind of story in itself, maybe that kind of stuff. But Yeah, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, I think like but yeah, again, like the way that the story and everything was actually explored in this episode too, kind of definitely like now thinking about it does remind me of like pretty much exactly how they covered it in WandaVision 2. But I think in that one, it was literally Agatha herself actually walking down that path of memory lane with Wanda and actually kind of uncovering everything from her childhood trauma to then her kind of being within Hydra's labs and doing the testing and everything. So. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, one thing Harrow also mentioned, like the organizing principle. I feel like I've heard that name somewhere before, and I think the concept of it, though, I think he said it was like escaping the truth of a traumatic reality by creating your own fantasy and living that instead, and actually creating all these different turns that you can actually turn to in order to avoid doing that. There was a movie I watched a long while back on Netflix. I believe it was Netflix. It was a movie with Sam Worthington in it that I watched a long while back, and it covered. I think I don't know. I can't remember if they actually refer, because by the plot twist at the end, I think that they covered kind of what it was conceptually, but I think I'm not sure if they have ever actually used this name in the movie. I only like saw it like once, and it was like a really interesting kind of concept overall. But and like the plot twist, like I actually never saw coming. But there was a movie. I can't remember. I actually can't remember. I can't even remember what it was called either. But I think it was a movie with Sam Worthington, and in that movie, I think I'm gonna explain the plot twist too. So spoiler alert for the movie. But yeah, no. So I think so in that movie, I think the overall kind of story was that his daughter got injured and he took her to hospital to get checked out, and his like the wife was with him and everything. So then the wife and the daughter got checked in, and he waits for them to come out. But then they never do. So then he spends the entire movie actually like somewhat kind of infiltrating the hospital to actually find out where they are, where they've been taken, what they've done, and because then even then the doctors are all start to act like really shady and don't tell him anything, and tell him that they've actually never had that patient checked in here before either. And then by the end of the episode, it actually turns out that his daughter died. And then as soon as the accident happened, but then he couldn't deal with that, and then he actually pushed his wife out of the way to to deal with that, but then she died because he pushed her away, and then her head got injured too, so then they both died, but then he was like in that moment he was still too kind of stricken by like a grief stricken and stricken by trauma that he just couldn't deal with that. So then he packed them in, like he actually kind of like hid them away in the trunk of his car, then went to hospital. So then he created he then in his mind created that kind of fantasy that they were fine but just injured, and then he took them to hospital and actually had that whole thing kind of going on and everything. So then but by the end it was actually revealed that they've been dead the entire movie, but then his mind was too like broken by that trauma to deal with the truth of it. So then he created he then created an alternate kind of fantasy to actually to avoid dealing with that trauma. So I think it's near enough kind of like the same kind of concept, the same kind of principle being there too. So I think again, like I really can't remember if they actually used the same name, but I think the way that Harrow explained it in this too, like actually creating like an alternate kind of fantasy to deal or even to avoid dealing with the truth of the trauma, really kind of actually kind of rang a bell for me. So yeah, so I think that kind of like felt kind of really familiar to actually hear and to actually kind of think about. So yeah, so I think with this one it's pretty much I think it's near enough the same too, like with the idea. I think at least in this case too, it's pretty much exactly what he did too, to actually kind of create the kind of alter to avoid dealing with the fear and the trauma that came with all those years of being blamed and everything. So yeah, and I think one kind of concept that kind of, I mean, it was revealed in Mark's favor in the end too, and it's like, you know, I think then I mean, yes, I think that obviously the scales being unbalanced the entire episode from the start, like that they weighed two hearts. But then I think that's the thing though. So I think then the fact that they took two hearts, the fact that they took Stephen and Mark's heart, makes it so that even like the gods legitimately count Stephen, alter or not, like created or not, they legitimately count Stephen and his lived experiences as worth scaling and as worth measuring for justice and for, you know, for equal measure and everything. So I think that means even the gods literally consider him to be like an actual existent and valid and worthy kind of human being and everything. But then it's both of their scales being on the tipping point that kind of sets things in array for the episode. And that, so then according to Taweret, the key then is for them to actually go through Mark's history, and for like because then both of them are incomplete, both of them are actually incomplete, and then and their hearts aren't full. I think they don't really know everything about each other. Yeah, I mean Mark probably knows kind of almost everything about Stephen, but then Stephen knows next to nothing about Mark. He knows nothing about his history. I think he spent like from episode 1, he thought he was the original, but then he finds out that there's actually like a whole other kind of alter living within him. There's a whole other personality living within him. So there's that kind of thing. But then you'd think that with Stephen being as innocent as he is and as good-hearted as he is, you think that would work in their favor. Because I mean, the question then for me is so the scales are measuring them, but is the scale measuring the combined goodness of both hearts against the feather, or is it measuring both hearts? Because then, if that's the case, then I think it's like then it would kind of make more sense to measure one heart after the other, wouldn't it? Or maybe to actually measure them on 2 different scales. Because then, if they're measuring them together, then if they're measuring the hearts together against the feather, then that makes more sense to measure how combined goodness of the hearts. But then it's like 2 hearts of like belonging to 2 different identities, but then still that's still effectively making it so it's like 2 different people being judged and everything. So it's like, I don't know, I think it's like because then I don't really kind of see the point of that either, because then it's like you're still then judging 2 different people against the same feather. So then that just doesn't really kind of seem like the most kind of fair test. Like if it was one person, then obviously it would only be 1 heart. But then it's 2 different people inside one body, so then you're judging 2 hearts against 1 feather. But then it's like 2 different hearts with 2 different histories, 2 different kind of identities, 2 different personalities, and 2 different kind of aims and motivations and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. But then of course by the end it's revealed that after that Stephen supposedly dying. In the sands of the duat is what finally simplified it down to 1 heart, which was Mark's. And then at that point, after everything that Mark goes through, and even after all the reassurance that Stephen gives him too, it finally works in his favor. It literally finally, like, even after everything he's done, he finally kind of gains that kind of fullness in himself with the help of Stephen, and then that kind of finally gives his heart the edge over the feather, and then it finally measures as equal. So it can never kind of go above. I think the heart can probably never be lighter than the feather. I think it can only be kind of heavier with sins, or it can be like I mean, it probably can be. I think I've not really looked into that lore or that history in like a long time, but I think from what I remember, I think it can only ever be equal or heavier. So then if it's heavier, obviously you get dragged over, but then if it's actually equal weight, then you can pass and go onto the field of reeds. So yeah, that's clearly what happened in the end, isn't it? Clearly what happened. And I think they also did active like not actively, but I think they did like the two kind of different things that they actually did address with the Moon Knight history too. I think the Moon Knight history, when they walked into that when they walked into that kind of cafe with all the dead people, I thought maybe it could have been his work as a mercenary. I thought it could be work as a mercenary, but I think he mentioned like his first mission as a mercenary was to actually raid that tomb. I think that's all he ever actually. I think he did as a mercenary. I think because then he was still a mercenary. Like he'd still been like officially accounted for as a mercenary. But then I think that was also like his first and last mission, because it went awry so quickly. It went AWOL so quickly, and he almost died and everything. But I think that might have been the only thing he ever actually did as a mercenary. But then he still had like enough of a conscience to not go through with all of his orders. Because I think his orders were no witnesses, but he couldn't bring himself to actually kill absolutely everyone. But then his partner was on the opposite end of the fence, and he absolutely could and everything. So I think the Egyptian thing might be the only thing he ever actually did as a mercenary. But yeah, but no, I think he said like that room was actually full of people. Was full of people he killed as Moon Knight, people like murderers, predators, all kinds of like kind of criminals that actively harmed people and killed people, and especially because like Moon Knight is not just Khonshu's kind of warrior or Khonshu's kind of here like mantle or symbol or like his avatar or anything like that. But I think Moon Knight is actively the one who protects travelers of the night, people who travel through the night, especially like with the night being as kind of negatively connotated as it is, with all sorts of threats, both human and otherwise, and all that kind of stuff. I think it makes sense that he'd be the protector of the night explicitly, and he'd be the one kind of providing safe passage and taking out those who would do harm and delivering Khonshu's kind of justice and vengeance and everything. So yeah, I think what makes it even more kind of like, I think that scene too, I think what makes it even more kind of realistic and horrifying is the fact that like Stephen's initial kind of reaction to that too, like Stephen like looking at them and seeing what looks like perfectly normal human beings, people in uniform, people in everyday clothes, and people who look relatively harmless. But then it's like, the fact that the fact that Mark not only specified that it was actually people he killed as Moon Knight, but then he also actively pointed them out as actual murderers and rapists and predators and all sorts of people who sought to do harm in the night when they were kind of like at their most kind of active, and all that kind of stuff goes to show that he actively stopped human predators. He stopped human predators, human criminals, and human kind of monsters and everything. So I think that kind of scene, like that kind of theme, that kind of story, that kind of detail is kind of what gets to me the most too. Because I think with the MCU and with all these kind of superheroes that we see in the MCU, I think it's like we get them here and there, like even in the earlier phases. But I think for the most part, we deal with such sci-fi powered kind of villains and enemies and threats and everything. Like we deal with aliens and powered people and all these different kinds of things, but it's like it's quite rare, and it's like not only is it quite rare, but it's only if you deal with the people who aren't Moon Knight is kind of powered by Khonshu, but then it's not until you deal with like street level heroes or people with less power, or people who actively choose to only use their power to not deal with the big threats all the time, like people who actively decide and choose to stay low to the ground and protect the more everyday people instead. Like the Avengers have like stopped like kind of like terrorists and all that kind of stuff too, but at the same time I think they still deal with like there's a reason they're called Avengers level threats, because they're like the Avengers are made up of all sorts of different kind of skill sets and power sets and everything. But then if you get like the Defenders, like you got like a blind lawyer, you got like a super powered PI, you got Luke Cage, you got like the Heroes for Hire and like Iron Fist and everything. Like they're the street level people, because then they actively defend the people of the streets and the people of their home and everything. So I think seeing Moon Knight kind of join that pantheon too, like of someone who actively uses powers to protect people who can't protect themselves in that kind of on that much kind of smaller of a scale, but to a much greater effort. I think seeing that also did kind of feel like scary to actually know, like to actually see them kind of reference like the truth of the truth of life and the truth of reality and everything. But it's still kind of like important to note that he actually does like kind of like do that kind of protection. Like he doesn't just stop like jackals or otherworldly creatures like when he does, but then he also like still actively kind of takes on humans that seek to do harm, and that was also Khonshu's message as well. Like, you will use my power to enact vengeance on those who seek to do harm to innocent travelers of the night and everything. And I think, yeah, even that kind of flashback of actually showing, I think the one difference, yeah, I read in the comics it was actively two people. I think Marlene was a character. I think Marlene, I think she was a character in this in the comics. I think apparently Marlene was in the comics, but then the version of her that we get in this is Layla. Layla is actually meant to be Marlene. I think either Marlene and or Marlene and one other person combined into one. So I think that's how we get Layla. But I think in the comics, I think it might have been Marlene and maybe one other person who actually saved Mark. Like, I think two people actually dragged him because he was too injured to move. So I think two people actually dragged him to the statue of Khonshu and placed him under it, and then that's how he survived. But I think in this one, apparently he saved himself. So I mean that much. So that's yeah. Like he dragged himself to the statue of Khonshu, and I think with this one too, I think he was ready to kill himself. I think in the comics he was fatally wounded, and he just didn't really kind of respond to much. And I think maybe he kind of still heard Khonshu's voice and said yes. But in this one, he's ready to kill himself and everything. But then he hears Khonshu's voice because he's near the idol, and then after that. He eventually says yes, and then Khonshu kind of takes hold of him. But then I think because then even then, Stephen kind of pointed out that Khonshu really kind of twisted his words and actually twisted his way into your mind, and he actually exploited you and everything. So the fact I think even the fact that Khonshu actually mentioned your mind is so fractured and broken and this, that, and the other. So then this gives you ample opportunity to actually say yes to me and to do my bidding and to actually kind of help save people in my name and everything. I think it then reminds me directly at the episode I think it's episode 1 or episode 2 when Harrow asked Stephen, Harrow asked Stephen, did Khonshu enter your mind because it was already broken and it was easy for him to enter, or did he enter your mind, or is your mind broken because Khonshu forced his way in and he's actually one of the voices kind of hassling you all the time and everything. So I think now this kind of confirms that Khonshu identified him from the beginning as someone with DID and as someone with like a fractured mind and with all these different kind of voices and alters in his head. So then he just kind of decided, that makes entry really easy. I could just easily be one of those voices and I can use you and use your body as much. Because even then, like in episode 2, he said, this body belongs to me because I saved it, because I made you what you are, because I allowed you to live a second chance again. So I think, yeah, I mean, not really having to go very far to vilify Khonshu or to actually point him out as like someone who's actively like exploitative and actually malicious in certain ways and everything. So even if his mission is the right mission to actually save people and to actually stop evildoers, like he's still actively choosing someone who's he's choosing someone for the wrong reason still, and he's actively choosing someone. He's actively kind of manipulating them into believing that they have a choice and believing they have a choice after they become his avatar and become the Moon Knight and everything. So. Yeah, that flashback was a whole other trip as well, so, yeah. And yeah, God, yeah, this, again, the scene that actually fucking broke me, the scene that officially broke me, I mean, you know, if I'm thinking about it now, I honestly don't know when I started crying. I honestly actually don't know, because I think the entire episode I was, like from the kind of, from the cave scene onwards, I was just kind of, I was lost, and I was just kind of, like, I didn't know how to actually handle or process this kind of stuff, and I didn't know like how far they were gonna go, like in what direction it was gonna go. So I was just kind of lost from that point onwards. But I think I'm like fairly sure that it was after that bedroom, because I think they even set up the bedroom scene to be the absolute worst thing that ever happened to Mark, and that to be the one. But I think on the other hand too, I think it's also like on the one hand, I think it's also because that's one of the most traumatic points in Mark's life where he actively couldn't deal with anymore. He couldn't deal with his mother's anger. He couldn't deal with her abuse. He couldn't deal with the trauma of that kind of stuff. Like he couldn't, and he also didn't want to. He didn't want to have to live in fear of her abuse and her kind of violence towards him anymore. He didn't want to have to deal with that anymore. So then, you know, like that was one reason. But then that was also the first time he created Steven. Like that was the moment he created Steven. And then he knew that if Steven went in there, he would find out. He would find out. That's when that's when his alter, like his identity was created, and then that's when the truth would be revealed, and that's when Steven would find out that he wasn't the first one, and everything. So, you know, because of that, you know, like he because of that, he cares about Steven that much. I think throughout this entire season, if there's one thing that has actually like been visible, and there's one thing that's actually been so visible and so clear, is that, you know, regardless of if anyone else thinks Steven is real or not, he knows Steven is real, because he didn't create Steven just for the fun of it. He had no choice. He wanted to escape. He wanted so badly to escape that trauma, to escape that fear, and Stephen Grant, like the character, was actually based off of the concept of a fearless and courageous character who could conquer anything, and who could, you know, escape any danger, and who could actually handle that fear without breaking the sweat. And that's the thing, the tagline of the poster even said, you know, Stephen Grant, the man with no fear, or like when Stephen Grant isn't here, there's no fear, or so something like that. Like Stephen Grant essentially nullifies fear and everything. And then even the Stephen Grant he created is like the most wholesome, most loving, most kind of caring person that there is. Like he's like I think you know, at least part of Mark wishes that Stephen Stephen is the version of him that he wishes he could be. Stephen is the person who's you know, as wholesome and as happy that like Mark wishes he could be, and that, you know, Mark wishes that he deserved to be, maybe because like after years of being blamed for something like that, he believes that he doesn't deserve to be happy, or he doesn't deserve to feel safe or feel happy anymore. So then he creates Steven, who essentially was all the good parts of him, because then there was still a good time. Like his history does still have like everything before that cave was nice, it was peaceful, it was happy, it was familial, there was a love there that was then lost after Randall died in the case. And I think everything like that, like everything pre-cave is, I think, where the positivity for Steven comes from, because that's when, because even then the latest Gators thing comes from like I think Mark's mother had that phrase of like in a wild crocodile. Like I think she had the crocodile version. She had the crocodile version of that phrase. I think that's where he gave Steven latest Gators based on that phrase. He actively gave him that. So then, God damn it. Yes, I think everything positive about his life and everything happy about his life before that cave, he gave to Steven, because he wanted there to be a version of him that actually that was happy and deserved happiness, because he didn't believe that he did. So he wanted to create a version of him that didn't have to deal with that pain, that didn't have to actually think about it, and could easily like escape that kind of danger and everything. So then he created Steven to be someone who's unequivocally kind of happy and wholesome and caring and deserves the world, because, you know, like he created someone who he believed deserves the world, because he didn't think he did. So Just like it's essentially then like two different versions of the same person too. It's like, you know, and I think even like if you add in Jake too, that's then three different versions. I think Mark is then, you know, like Mark is the one who went through the trauma and who suffered the backlash and who suffered the abuse, and he wanted to escape everything. Stephen is the version that he wishes he could be, and Stephen is the version that he thinks deserves all happiness. And I think Jake might just be the one who's angry. Jake might be the one who's actively angry, he's the one who kind of manifests the anger from that trauma. Like, he's angry at his mother, he's angry at his dad for not having done something soon. Like, he even said, like, you know, he even says, like, when he leaves, he says, you know, you should have been doing something, you should have done something by now, you're meant to take care of this, you're meant to actually take care of the situation, like, you should have never let this get as bad as it did and everything. So and I think maybe the reason Jake is so violent is because he's angry at what happened. He blames himself, then his mother's kind of abuse towards him is inflicted too, so then he's actively angry at the world, and he's angry at life and everything. So I think that might be why he's like so that might be why he's seen as so violent, because then he's actively lashing out and everything. So then it's effectively 2/3 different versions of the exact same person. So yeah, and again I think like not the most knowledgeable person on DID or how it works or how it manifests. So I think, again, this isn't me trying to define DID or redefine it or do anything or dictate how it works, but it's me kind of, you know, like just, you know, like saying like how I'm seeing it, how I'm interpreting and everything. So if I do get anything wrong, again, my sincerest apologies. I'm not trying to, you know, redefine this or dictate this or anything like that. So yeah, and I do happily accept any corrections on terminology or definitions or, you know, different experiences. I mean experiences alone can be different too. I think people can experience it in fairly different ways, but I think overall the concept is still pretty much kind of the same. So yeah, and any kind of corrections you can happily kind of leave in the comments and everything. So yeah. But yeah, I think that the line from Stephen that broke me too, the line from Stephen that actively broke me was because then it's like, after the bedroom scene, like they Mark remembers the truth, and then Stephen discovers the truth. Stephen then discovers that, oh, as a child, Mark kind of then wanted to escape so badly that he literally escaped into like another identity. He escaped into another personality. He escaped into the version of the person that he believed would be the strongest and everything. So he then became Stephen Grant, and he then managed to, you know, literally kind of become someone stronger, become someone more courageous, become someone happier. So then because of that, Stephen then finds out that he wasn't the first. Like, not only was he not the first, but then Mark literally created him in order to escape and actually kind of live like a life that was more fulfilling and less full of danger and trauma and tragedy and everything. So then Stephen finds out that he was created and everything, and then Stephen, again, at this point, they're both like despite being different identities, they're both pretty much exactly the same age. They're both grown adult men with, you know, with like full lives behind them, and, you know, potentially 4 lives ahead of them too. So, you know, I think at that point, Stephen then finding out that he was created, and even then, like the way that Mark explains it too is so. I think for Stephen, it probably feels degrading and dehumanizing. Like, I think the way that Mark explains it is like, you know, oh, you got all the good stuff, you got all the good memories, all the good points of life, and that's why you were created. Actually, that's why he was created, to remember all the good stuff and to actually celebrate all the good stuff and everything. But then that's where Stephen actively kind of takes it, like, you know, that's where I was created. Like, so what, you just created me to be your little stress ball, or to like, whenever you needed someone or something to escape all the kind of dangers, like, you created me thinking that I could just kind of that you could just use me as a way to escape everything and to actually like to not be a real person. Because then again, Stephen not only thinks and believes that he's the real, that he is the at least the original person, but then he also believes that he's as real as anyone else. He believes he's as real as he is and everything, and that kind of stuff hurts. And I think like, not to divert from the sincerity and the reality of the actual kind of topic at hand, but then also, like, in terms of storytelling too, I think that's just one of the ways in which Oscar Isaac actually blew it out of the water with this too, like the way he can emulate those two people and not just personalities, but I think the way he can actually enact and actually bring those two people to life in such like an actual solid and like in such a solidified and such a human way is what makes it hit even harder. He's actively also playing Stephen as much of a real as much of a real person as Mark is, and so he's then actively portraying that kind of pain behind Stephen of then having to be told even by Mark that he's that he essentially was created to deal with trauma, and that he essentially was created to help Mark escape from trauma, and then that he actually wasn't as real as he had hoped before. So And then I think the more heartbreaking scene actually comes, like thematically and story wise. I think the more heartbreaking the scene actually comes from a scene almost followed directly by that, which is I think especially once they discover the truth about that shot of him on the street. I think almost safe to say probably almost everyone thought that might be Jake Lockley. I thought I saw a cab right behind him, like on the opposite side of the road. So I thought, oh, maybe that's Jake Lockley. Maybe that's when he became a cab driver or something, or like tried to get a job as Steven, but then ended up becoming Jake Lockley or something. I don't know, but like maybe that could have been him. But then the truth of that even hits even harder. Like that's then Mark. That's Mark going back to his mother's funeral, but then not even going inside and having to deal with that trauma, and then he transforms back into Steven again. And then that's when Steven gets on the phone and he starts recording all those voicemails, and then Mark can no longer talk to his mum, but then he also doesn't even have like a good history with his mother, so then he gives the ability to communicate in a healthy and positive and loving way with his mother to Steven. He thinks Steven deserves the opportunity to actually have someone to talk to and to actually have to have like an actual positive outlook and a positive connection and everything, and then that's why it's always voicemails too, because then Steven is another creation, so then he doesn't have like another mother to talk to. Like his mother is still Mark's mother, but then she's dead, so that's why it's always voicemails. Just God, fuck, oh God, coming all the way here from episode 1 just hurts so much. Coming all the way here from episode 1 just. But then, yeah, it's in that same scene. It's like once that reveal happens in that same scene that we actually see Mark and Steven then conversing, and then even like in that scene too, they finally find out the truth about what happened. But then Steven finds out that he doesn't have a mother either. His mother is the same mother, but then she's dead. So then he's been talking to no one this entire time, and he's been believing the wrong thing almost this entire time too. But then I think then Steven actively comforts Mark. Steven comforts Mark and tells him it wasn't your fault. You were just a child when it happened. It was unfair for your family and especially for your mother to actually throw all that baggage on you and to actually put all that emotional damage and all that weight on top of you. You were just a child. It wasn't your fault. Like the fact that it happened wasn't your fault. Like it's not fair for you to blame yourself to anyone and for anyone else to blame you. So I think the person he created to escape all this trauma and all this kind of darkness is the same person who then ends up actually comforting him and realizing the truth and actually reinforcing that truth into him. Because then Mark, I think he feels it's too far gone. He's already been blaming himself, but then he's already been blamed by his mother too for so long. So then he believes it so fluently and so solidly and everything. But then Steven is the one who actively still decides to take the time to be like, no, it's not your fault. I'm not gonna let you blame yourself, and you shouldn't blame yourself either. Like that scene of Steven being the one to comfort him and reassure him, just God, again, this episode it hit hard. It hit very hard. And I think even that scene of Steven having to come to terms with the fact that his mother's dead, and then that she's potentially not even real either, because then him and Mark technically then have the same mother. For the first time, he's actively unable to actually talk to her on the phone. Like I think this time, he's used to talking in voicemails, because then he's talking to a past version of her. He's talking for in a way that someone won't hear, logically, and until minutes or hours later. But then the fact that Harrow actively tries to get her on a more active call too forces him to confront that reality too. If you really have the same mother, then that means that she's not there. You're not talking to anyone. You're talking to a ghost, like a ghost of a more positive and more loving kind of past and everything. But that person is gone, and so is that past. So then you're actively talking to a past that he's talking to a past that Mark no longer has a connection to. So then Mark gave that past to him, and he's now talking to her. So that scene just this episode is full of heartbreak. It's just unfair. It's unfair. It's important, but it's unfair. So yeah. And that ending too. So then Steven was frozen in the Duat, and he I think the fact that he fought back, I think to begin with, they both had their individual methods of surviving, but also it was also cooperation. Because I think it's Mark being the fighter, he was actively fighting off his past and his past enemies and his past demons and everything. He was actively fighting them off, and then Steven, not being the fighter, he actually chose to actually try and help his environment instead, actually tilting the boat to keep Steven on board and to help him and to give him a winning edge and everything. But then in the end, in the end, Stephen gave it. In the end, Stephen gave in. In the end, Stephen actually gave in. He actively kind of physically fought back, and he picked up a bat and started pounding the bodies of Sand to even more death than they were already in and everything. So he started pounding them, and he fought back and everything. And he even tried to actually to lunge at the one final guy who was actually trying to pull Mark overboard, but then he went down too. I thought because of what Tawara said about the bodies being dragged down into even deeper kind of hell. I thought I thought as soon as Stephen landed in the sand, we'd see the hands come out and like some kind of like drag me to hell style death where the hands come out and then they actively drag Stephen in the sand and then Mark has to watch that happen. But no, he just gets frozen in sand. He literally just gets frozen and probably turned to rock or stone or something. So. Yes, then we lost Steven. So I mean, he can't be dead. I think he definitely cannot be dead. I think that is that alone. Because then Mark seeing the one good version of him and then the one kind of strong and positive version of him dying out too, and dying giving his life to save Steven. Like Steven died giving his life to save Steven to save Mark too. So then I think that like that's also something else that Mark just actively could not live with. So him having to go through that as well. It's just like a whole other bag of fish that does not need to be caught. So yeah, or fried or whatever. I don't know how the saying goes, but yeah. So then I think, and also like the kind of the backwardness of that kind of thing. I mean, the half backwardness. I think I'd say probably the half backwardness, because then they both deserve the field of release. They both deserve to be able to see paradise, to live to see that, to actually see like an actual positive and beautiful afterlife and everything. But you know, Stephen giving his life, I think that's probably like the kind of twisted consequence too. Like he gives his life, and then that kind of allows the scales to only judge one heart, or maybe even actually judge it. Maybe even judge it, knowing that Stephen's kind of final moments were one of sacrifice and one of actual positivity and everything. Like him giving his life to save someone else, like that could have been what tipped the scale. But then that kind of leaves Stephen to actually kind of freeze away in the Duarte world. Mark actually gets to see a paradise that he never thought he deserved and everything. So there's a poetry to it, but it's a poetry that they both deserve. It's a poetry they both definitely deserve to see. So yeah. And speaking of paradise too, I think speaking of the afterlife anyway, I think I liked that they actually did. They mentioned the ancestral plane. The ancestral plane, and Tawara is right. It's fucking beautiful. It's a fucking gorgeous afterlife. I think not only is the ancestral plane real, but I think she also mentioned that the kind of afterlife itself is like an actual wide plethora of like different kind of afterlives based on different cultures and religions. I think different cultures and religions have different concepts and different understandings of what the afterlife is and what it looks like, how it operates, how it judges and everything. So you know, the ancestral plane from Wakanda is a very valid and legitimate kind of realm of the afterlife of its own representation. And then the Egyptians have their own thing, so that means kind of heaven and hell and whatever concept Islam has also is real too. So I think that kind of thing is actually beautiful too. So like, you know, I think that kind of representation is actually beautiful too. Actually saying that, you know, all afterlives and all concepts of heaven and hell and afterlives and how souls and how lives are judged are all equally valid and equally worthy, and then they all kind of coexist on the same kind of plane of kind of celestial life and celestial afterlife and everything. So I think that kind of thing being like a real thing is still. I know I kind of refer to it as like a multiversal kind of afterlife thing, but I think it's not. I think it doesn't specifically have to be like an actual multiversal thing. I think like, you know, generally speaking, it's just like a way of actually accepting everything that exists as everything that exists. I think you know, like, it doesn't have to be simplified down to one thing just because the concept or the name is the same or similar. So you know, everyone's kind of understanding of how the afterlife works is fair and is accurate and is valid because it all exists. And I think based on which religion you are in, based on which culture you're in, you get to go to whichever one you actually believe in, and you get to be judged fairly according to whichever system you believe in. So yeah, that was cool. That was nice. I think actually having that ancestral plane name drop alone was actually nice too. Actually confirming that what we've seen before also exists somewhere out there, and like Wakandans, that's where they go. I mean, I don't know if it's where Wakandans go. I think it kind of can be. I think the only way we've seen it explored so far is for the Black Panthers, like for people who've actually held the Black Panther mantle in the past are the only ones we've seen so far. But I think it can be fair to say that I think like it being like an ancestral plane too. I think it's also like a place for actual regular non-Black Panther Wakandans and like civilians to go to. So I guess so, yeah. But yeah, as of right now, that is all I've got. I've talked so much. I've mentioned as much as I can think of and as much as I can remember. So I've talked a lot now. So yeah, this was just a whopper. This penultimate episode was actually unarguably bigger than the last one. Unarguably a lot bigger than the last one, and a lot more impactful and a lot more kind of heavily and well written and everything. I think, you know, changes were made, and those changes can be critiqued, and those critiques should be listened to. But I think for the most part, I think, you know, they did still. They didn't try and change it in a way that kind of lessened its impact or even actually altered its impact. I think they kind of changed it for whatever reason, but I think the changes they made still kind of hit hard and still hit and impacted in like an actual understandable and a believable way. So I guess we'll see moving forward exactly how they kind of continue to approach and tackle the character, and how they actually kind of continue to, I don't know, continue to examine and display the alters and everything. So I guess we'll see how it all goes. I'll see how it goes. And I think again, like, next episode is meant to be the last one, so I think I'm really curious to see how this all kind of wraps up. I think I'm excited. I'm curious to see how it all wraps up, but I definitely cannot see them kind of closing all doors or closing all loose ends on this, and actually kind of leaving it with nowhere else to go. So hopefully either a movie or a season 2 is going to be on the way. So I think I'd personally prefer a season 2, because again, like, the whole Disney Plus, the kind of series format is working so well for characters like these, where a movie probably wouldn't really do them as much justice and everything. So really hoping a season 2 is actually on the way and everything. So yeah, but that is it. That is my official reaction for Moon Knight Season 1, Episode 5. So thank you guys, as always, so much for being here and for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed it, then feel free to leave a like and comment on what your thoughts were and how you felt about this episode, and what your kind of comments and critiques are, and how you feel they did with their kind of with their exploration on Mark's history and his trauma and everything, and how you felt they handled it and everything. Yeah, and if you're interested too, the full-length reaction is going to be over on Patreon, so you can go check that over there. But yeah, that is pretty much all I've got for this one. So yeah, until next time, bye bye for now.